Hello and welcome back to a new lecture on phonetics. In the last lecture we talked about the maximal onset principle and we looked at some phonotactics of English. So now let's look at a more universal type of phonotactic. That is called the sonority sequencing principle. Sometimes we just say SSP for short. So its job is to outline the structure of a syllable based on sonority. So the SSP, or the sonority sequencing principle, states that the center of a syllable, or the nucleus we know, constitutes a sonority peak that is preceded and or followed by a sequence of consonants with progressively decreasing sonority values. What are these sonority values? Well, these are determined by the Sonority Scale. So the Sonority Scale shows us which sounds have the most sonority, which sounds are more sonorous, meaning which sounds are louder, are more easily audible, and which sounds are less. The way this is broken down is as follows: vowels, semivowels, proximants, nasals, and then obstruents. Obstruents basically means the group of fricatives, affricates, and stops. So let's see how this works. Let's give this a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So the higher we go up the scale, the more sonority exists. The lower we go, the less. Now let's take an example. Take the word cat. Okay, and let's try to put in our sonority scale here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Alright, let's map this onto here. Here is the vowel. A vowel we said receives 7, so we'll put it right there. Now remember that this vowel is the nucleus. According to the sonority sequencing principle, the nucleus should be the peak. Well, it's pretty obvious that there's nothing higher than 7, but let's see. We need these to be lower now. K, according to this, is a stop, and so it should receive 1. Therefore, we will map it onto here, so it goes right there. The T sound is also a stop. It receives 1, so it goes right there. Now what we have is something that looks like a pyramid shape, with the nucleus as the peak. Now we don't necessarily have to get this pyramid shape every time. The only thing that matters is that if you're at the peak, if you look left, you have to be going down. And if you look right, you also have to be going down. You don't necessarily have to go down or have to have a part of the syllable that exists here. What do we mean by that? Let's take another example and see. Take the word it. The I is the vowel, it's the peak all the way up here. T is a stop, it's all the way down here. We're going downwards. Notice we have not completed a pyramid shape. But that's fine, that's because we don't have an onset here. So long as to the right of the peak we are only going down, I don't want to go down and then back up again. This should never happen within the same syllable. So now let's look at a word with more than one syllable. Here's the word appraise. Now remember, this is 1 unit, it's a diphthong. Let's go ahead and place this nucleus on the scale. It's a 7, so is this vowel, it's a 7. Now starting from here and going to the left, we want to see how many onsets we can give to this one. Now the R is an approximant, it receives 5 based on the sonority scale. The P is a stop, it receives 1, so it's down here. Z is a fricative, it receives 3, so it's over here. Let's see what this looks like. Now, from this peak, going to the right, we are going only down, so that's good. Going to the left, we are going only down, so that's good as well. This peak has nothing going to the left and nothing going to the right. So far, so good. Here's a word we talked about before. Let's go ahead and see why our syllabification was diploma. First of all, let's put our nuclei. This one is a 7. This diphthong is also a 7. and this vowel, the I sound, is a 7. So starting from the right, like we always do, we give an onset. This onset is a nasal. It receives a 4. There we go. And now since we have another peak, then that means we are starting a new syllable. From this peak, looks like we don't have any more options for consonants to the right. That means there are no codas. But we have 2 options for onsets. Should we take both or leave one for the coda of the last syllable? Well, practicing with the maximal onset principle, we should take both, if we are allowed to. So the L is an approximant. It receives 5, right about there. The P is a stop. It receives a 1, right there. So as you can see, from the peak, we are also going only downwards. That means we did not violate any of the phonotactics. We are not violating the sonority sequencing principle. Therefore, it is okay to take both of these as the onset of this syllable. Now up to the last syllable, here's the peak right here. And we only have one option, so we're going downwards as well. And that's how we get the 3 syllables. Let's go ahead and draw these syllables. So this is how it's going to be. We're going to have a nucleus. Every nucleus is part of a rhyme, and every rhyme is part of a syllabus with an onset. Okay, so we have one onset here. And here we already discussed that we have 2 onsets, and here's an onset for here. And it looks like none of them have a coda. Alright,